Alright, so today we are going to be working on a different project, of course, you could have guessed, but we are going to be somewhere that doesn't really make the most sense if you just look at the biome. But what we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to be making a sheep farm. Now, usually sheep farms are just kind of made in different locations for various reasons. This one has to be made in some sort of area where the bone meal will not create flowers, which is why we're doing it in a mesa. Most people do sheep farms in the end, but this one, since it can be chunk loaded, I said might as well do it in an overworld biome that we can do in 117. That way we can just physically chunk load it. And yeah, it's going to be another small 5x5 chunk area here that we can see down here that is marked out with this black concrete. And I wanted to do this in the overworld, obviously, like I said, for chunk loading purposes, but also just to show up a new thing that, not really new, but new that I've seen and I think deserves some more recognition. Not everybody likes to do TNT. I don't only do it because you kind of have to on large scales because you can't do movable dispensers, but on this scale, it's pretty straightforward to do something that doesn't need to have that stuff. On this scale, it's something that isn't really needed to have all that stuff like that with TNT dupers and everything like that. So we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be using Floppy Donkey's smart, basically TNT dispenser grid. So what this is going to do, unlike a normal dispenser grid, instead of just placing the dispensers at a certain height and letting it fall down by itself, what it's actually going to do is it's actually going to start it off just above the terrain like a normal grid would, but it'll automatically adjust it to the height that the floor is at to get the most amount of blocks destroyed per TNT. That way it's also a bit more TNT efficient, but also leaves a lot less blocks left over once it's actually done all of its TNT duping, which is the goal, because obviously you're doing it as quick as possible. That way you don't need to worry about manually mining it out, so having some leftover blocks is not going to be ideal. This thing right here, we can do that very, very easily. Now, all it is basically just a bunch of dispenser TNT grid here. It's 11 blocks off the ground, which is indicated by this gold pillar right here. So your first layer has to be at least here. You can do it lower, of course, because we have a variation of terrain a little bit. We're going to be wasting a little bit of TNT, which isn't too big of a deal because it's already going to be done quite quickly. I also picked a location where there is very, very small amounts of lava or water, anything like that. We can also speed it up quite a bit there. We could go more into this mountain, but I really don't want to do so because obviously it's even higher up and then even less. So this one seems pretty reasonable to me for a location to build it. And yeah, so that's really all it is. I'll explain this part here. Obviously, I'm not going to explain it as well as Floppy Donkey, so definitely go check out their video linked in the description down below. This thing, we can get the world download for this machine to use yourself. Of course, we're going to have to extend it a little bit, cut it short a little bit in this direction, extend a little bit in that direction, but that's pretty straightforward to do. We could take like a little schematic of 2 of the lanes that are built and then copy them over. That way we can do that as well. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward to build. And then we have to bring over, I think that's about like 17,000 TNT or so for a 100 tall area. And it's going to be around 70 or so. We shouldn't need too much. Maybe like 10 shulker boxes, if that. The hardest part is actually going to be distributing all of the TNT to the various dispensers. You could, if you wanted to, do like a copper mine cart thing like that if you wanted to, but personally, just go around and build them up as you go. Pre-stacking about like 2 or 3 stacks for this height here per dispenser shouldn't be all too bad. But yeah, so we'll get this all built up. Go grab all the resources, which isn't actually too much at all. Look at the material list right now. Deep slate just for the first layer, so it's really not that much for what the time it's going to save you, either to manually mine this area out or to do something else, which otherwise TNT, you could do this with dupers as well if you wanted to. Personally, I wouldn't necessarily see it being worth it, but maybe you don't want to do the regular TNT. You could also attach a duper to this some way if you wanted to as well, or just use a 3-way duper. Personally, I like 3-way dupers all too much, but I think this will be a nice thing to actually show off and get it done pretty quickly as well. Alright, so that took a little under an hour, probably about 45 minutes if I didn't stop and talk to a couple of people in Discord or a Twitch stream. So yeah, it's not too bad at all, especially for a 5x5 chunk area, which I really think is like the only use case I would use this for. Personally, just like Floppy said in the video, I don't see it being useful on a full perimeter scale. But for the small, 5x5 areas, which is usually what a portal will load, so a portal will load 3x3 of entity processing and 5x5 of lazy. So this is why we're doing a 5x5 here, just so we get all the area that we possibly can. Now, yes, it won't be perfect because as you can see, some of the TNT is basically right on the edge. So it's not going to be a perfect 5x5, but it'll be a little bit bigger, which will allow me a little bit extra room for decoration, which I definitely love to do for my perimeters, just to show that extra bit of effort. So yeah, now it's time to just get a bunch of TNT. I think we're going to just put like 2 or 3 stacks per dispenser. Obviously, if we have extra, we have extra. But yeah, so we've got a lot of TNT. We should have pretty much crafted up. If not, it won't be that bad because we just get a lot of sand from that. And we also have a creeper farm and raid farms, countless raid farms in the server. So it won't be too bad at all to get those. So we get those back. Come back here and load them all up, and then we can actually see this thing in action, which is definitely going to be a satisfying thing to watch, and maybe even do it in the form of another time lapse, but we shall see once that does happen. AutoCraft's archive is officially live. It is mainly a collection of all of the perimeter decorations that are on AutoCraft. So if you were ever interested in picking up one of these, now would be the best time to do so. Visit the website linked down below. Alright, all the TNT is in. I found probably, I think our lazy raid farm or a very old raid farm we're not going to use anymore. Mainly because there's better farms now at this point. We really made that farm just because not many people actually go through all the effort to make that farm in survival. But for us, I mean for me personally, I think a raid farm that requires you to actually get TNT to run the farm seems like a pretty decent offset or like cost to actually use a raid farm, because they are pretty ridiculous crazy once you get them to high stack in potential, where you get a raid every 4 game ticks, so 5 full raids per second. Yeah, then it gets a bit ridiculous. So I think that's a pretty good balance for raid farms themselves. That way, not too ridiculous. But yes, we have a bunch here that we can use. I think I have brought about like 50,000 TNT over in shulker boxes, and there's only about probably like 10,000-ish left there. So I don't think we're going to be using all of this. I just put 3 stacks in each dropper, or dispenser rather. They're not actually droppers, you need actually dispensers. Otherwise it would just shoot the item out itself and you wouldn't go anywhere. But yeah, so I think we are good. I'm going to just put a couple stacks of items in there, just so that we can see what layer we are actually on. And like I said, we don't need to go down that far because we're still in 117, and it's not that bad at all. The lowest the terrain is around Y60, so almost like ocean level, but it's still going to be a cool thing to actually see used rather than just either a 3-way duper, or if you were to just mine it out yourself, or do a mini ward eater. You could do it on this scale. We have done one in the past in the nether before. There's a 5x5 chunk area. We used a trenchless ward eater for that. That way, you didn't need to make a lot of time on the trenches. You could just build the invul walls up to a small scale. It's still pretty costly, but for this, I think we're okay. So yeah, we got all the items in place. That's one will power over to see that. We got the 3 items in this one here. Turn the medic on, that way you can see what exactly needs to be there. This is your time you want to pulse it. We got 13 items in that one. And this one, there is 16. There should be 17 actually, so there should be one extra underneath there, which is fine. 17 and 2 right there. We get the 13 there, and that's pretty much everything there. The filter one, you need to have 1 in each slot of the item that you have 17 of up here, and then 2 extra ones in that slot there. But yeah, that's everything there. Enough rambling. Let's see if this will actually work. Alright, backup is done. It'll take about a minute and a half. So we are all to go here. Click the snow block once. That first fuse time is so nerve-wracking because it basically gets as close as it possibly can to not destroy anything up there. But that is really satisfying to watch, and of course once we get down to the layers where everything is all blocks, it will be even better. So I'm just going to grab my sponges here. That way I am ready to destroy a bunch of water or things like that. I probably should go back and real quick before we're even done, I should go back and get some gravity blocks. That way I can also clear out some lava pretty easily. So yeah, I'll run this a couple more times before I go do that because we're going to get a lot of layers down until we're actually at that lava point anyways. So we'll do a couple more here. Seeing the down excelled TNT here, it is a really nice thing to watch. Floppy did an amazing job with this thing. And I can imagine some of you guys that don't like TNT duping to use this in the near future. Even just listening to it go is really satisfying. So I'm gonna keep going until we get all the way down to that flat layer there. And then I'm going to go and grab some of the gravity blocks. You know, I'm surrounded by a lot of sand, but we are wasting a bit of TNT on the other side, but I'm not too worried about it. We have plenty of gunpowder, and sand is not an issue to get either, so... yeah, that was really satisfying right there. Get into the last one, we'll get rid of all this sand, and then I'll be back with another time lapse. And just like that, 20 minutes later, and we are down to bedrock. So I would say roughly about 45 minutes or so if you were in 1.1819. Of course, provided you build it within the distance that the TNT can get shot down excelled for. So you check Bobby's video there. I think it's around like 100 some odd blocks. So provided you're within that range, you are good to go. So yeah, whether you're going to already to the area out physically and manually mine it out with a pickaxe, use a quarry, or a TNT dispenser grid here, there are various ways to actually mine out an area inside of Minecraft, which of course is all what the game is about in a sense, because you are just mining one big hole. But yeah, if you're not going to be using TNT duping or anything like those any of those high-end machines like road eaters or quarries, I definitely recommend you guys to check this out by Floppy for the like high-level expert TNT duping grid, high-level expert TNT dispenser grid here, because it's obviously not too bad. If we do the math here, it's about 80 TNT per dispenser for this 5x5 by area. For it to only be 9 shulker boxes of TNT for all of this, I think that is well worth it for you. If you are, of course, in need of a time crunch and you want to get it all done as fast as possible. Otherwise, I recommend just doing manual mining for this scale. We have done it before. We've also done a world eater on this scale before, but that was in the nether, so it seems a lot more worth it in the nether rather than the overworld, just because of the higher height map that exists there. This could also be used in the nether if you wanted to do so as well. I could see some people actually doing that, especially because of how annoying the nether is sometimes. Of course, with the nether, you would have to clear out enough clearance to actually build everything first with the 11 blocks, so probably about 15-16 blocks of clearance, which still isn't that bad at all, especially if you're doing it on a small scale like this one is right here. So yeah, if you like this type of content, a little bit different than I usually do, make sure to like, subscribe, all sorts of things, and I'll see you in the next one.